Hey everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka
Chromacopia.
and it is time for us to finally hash out one of the most important questions in Yu-Gi-Oh's history. Which of Yu-Gi-Oh's most powerful decks are good, and which are fraudulent? Today I'm trying to have a very important discussion, and that discussion is, who is the GOAT? What is the greatest Yu-Gi-Oh deck of all time? Of course, we will need to necessarily remove the number one contender from the equation. Unless we refuse to consider Tearlament to Shizu, they will wipe everything. Every no-ban list tournament is destroyed by these fuckers. They can stand up to anything any format throws at them because not only do they have extremely powerful setup combos, they also have hand traps to counter the very few things that beat them. And at full power, there's almost nothing that can stand up to these cards. Tearlament aside, who's the top dog? Let's see what you all came up with. Farfa says, okay, hear me out. Other than the obvious first place, I think anti-meta full power Zoo with like 30 hand traps would cook. We ran a trad format tournament years ago pre-Tearlament and this won. It's insane how hard Shifter or Droll carry against everything. I think this is probably the right response. Zodiac is such a small inclusion in these lists and can win off so few cards that just making a Trident and the basic Zodiac setup combo and then stuffing the rest of the deck packed to the gills full of cards that just end the turn, like Nibiru and Droll and the Charmies and Shifter, would probably wipe the floor with all of the FTKs that would be populating a non-ban list format. Of course, Tearlament could just Herald of Orange Light the Shifter, but aside from Tearlament. Dyer says probably Pendslop. If Pendulum wasn't a dangerous threat at full power, why else would Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG make the decision to keep Electromite banned? Okay, never mind. I thought she was being real, but it's just another whining post about this card. CJ says, if we are to presume the deck should be rated by the time of their release and not overall power, then this is mathematically the strongest deck of all time, and maybe the only actually solved format. Well, I'm not presuming that. Look, it's right here. Current card pool, everything legal. Why would you presume that? I've given you one piece of information and you ignored it. Did you want me to say zoo? Yes. Everything is legal? Reaches over to the table and fucking gets you. It's now legal. I wish says Pendulum FTK. Surely Lyralisk Independent Nightingale isn't a lower than level 6 fusion, which means of course you can summon it off of Magical Scientist. And surely there isn't a Dark Pendulum fusion lower than level 6, like Patisquiel Couverture. And surely there isn't a good thing you can make with Dark Fusion Pendulums. Wow, I really appreciate that even in the year of our Lord 2024, Magical Scientist is an FTK. I mean, even more efficiently than it was in the past. Now you don't even need the Catapult Turtle. Everything legal? Exodia FTK for sure, no? Literally 100% consistent and unrespondable unless they have what? Droll? Well, I gotta tell you, Farfa's idea is sounding better and better. And more importantly, this does nothing against Tearlament either, because if they go Havnus Milligito and they send a couple of pieces, you just die. Also, there's this fucked up thing in Yu-Gi-Oh! That I keep running into. Let me know if anyone else has had this experience. Apparently in half of your games, you have to go second? Just open it. Oh, okay. Trevor says, I want to say Pepe if it gets the master rule that didn't annihilate the penned mechanic, specifically the OCG's list. Yeah, this is close. 2 Shockmasters does kind of win the game on its own. The problem is there are hand traps, and also 2 Shockmasters doesn't always win the game. I can see the argument for this deck. Insane space for non-engine, a ridiculous amount of 1-card starters, and an insanely high ceiling with Beatrice plus Fiendsmith. I think this is a pretty good answer. I'm going to be honest. I think it is comparable to Zodiac insofar as it is a deck in which you would play like a ton of non-engine. The only difference between this and Zodiac is it wouldn't play Shifter. I don't know if that's the difference between it being the second best deck and not, but when the big baddie on the block is Tear, I do have to think it might matter. Truth Nuke. Truth Apocalypse. Truth 3 Mile Island Incident. Truth Chernobyl. The only downside is if it has to play against Runic Furhire. Whatever deck my opponent is playing at any given time. True! true. Yeah, Dragon Link is up there for sure. It is kind of crazy because we never got to see Dragon Link with everything legal at once. Like, what would they be doing now that they have the tools that they do with the new Red Eyes stuff and Agripin? Who knows? Eclipse Wyvern did nothing wrong. I will say Eclipse Wyvern, I think, is the #1 card on the list that can never come off under any circumstances. That's crazy, right? Because it seems like there's a lot more powerful stuff on there. But no, Eclipse Wyvern is the most frustrating thing that exists there. Tier 0 format. I think you mean Tier Stina 0 format. Okay. Gonna put in some boring ones. Kashtira and Flu have the teeth to fight for second place since they are the epitome of anti-meta. Flu, combination of Shifter Statue, and Kashtira, a deck build to counter Tearlament. Also both more consistent and play through Scythe and D-Barrier. I could see these. The thing that stops me from saying Flu is that it is pretty weak to single target negation, and it has a droll problem. And Cash is just not a good deck. Like, it has to be Gumblar Goki with extra hand rip spells, right? Okay. I am going to tell you all a hypothetical. I want you to consider it. Okay. I go Topologic Gumblar Dragon, right? Your opponent grins. They send Havness Merly. In fact, I will go even further. I have long said this. It shouldn't, because it would be bad for the game. But you could take Delinquent Duo off the ban list. Please don't. I mean, yeah. This is a cool concept. Going back to Exodia, but what if Sangan and Witch worked the way they did during the OCG Last Will Tier 0 Exodia format? Where if you activate Last Will and then pop a Sangan, you can summon a Sangan, then pop a Sangan and summon another Sangan. You can use it infinite times. You can only gain the effect once per turn and only summon one per pop. That would probably be a contender. But it feels like it loses not only to a Shizu tier, but also to the decks that are trying to beat a Shizu tier and hit you with like a Droll and a Shifter. I'm honestly not sure what archetype, but I know it's whichever deck can abuse these two the most. You're going to hate the answer to this one, but it's the one that I posted. Oh! I didn't even think of this. Oh, you can make this off Beatrice. Wow. I hate to be like this. Wind Up, despite the fact that it can do anything and everything under the sun, isn't good now in Master Duel. They're saying to give Hunter back so they can then hand loop. That's not the difference. That said, I love Wind Up, so the answer is yes. Oh. Yeah, unfortunately, I think Mystic Mine would be very popular. Actually, pretty surprised I had to scroll down this far to see Adamancipator. That deck's crazy. You know? This is a hot take, but I buy this one. It's crazy because Centurion has never been the best deck in its format, and frequently isn't even tiered. But it is without question the deck that plays around the most hand traps. And if you give it unlimited format, it does have Hot Red Dragon Archfiend King Calamity. I could see it. I've done a complete 180 on this deck, by the way. Like 2 months ago, I was like, this deck is so annoying, I hate it. And now I do respect it. It's like the deck you play if you don't want to play the 4 or 5 annoying ass meta decks. I wish you were right, Matthew McConville. I wish you were right. But unfortunately, Nekroz is just ass. It's maybe the worst aged Tier 0 deck of all time. I struggle to think of a deck that has aged worse and was Tier 0. Dad? I think legitimately there is an argument Dad Return is like more relevant than this deck. Like, there's some stupid stuff you can do with Return from the Different Dimension. This is like, it really does not do a lot. Dad is super bricky. Not if you play the way the pros did in 2006. Allegedly. Yeah, this could do it. Yeah, I think my precious queen could do it. Come on, Joseph. You know what the best deck is in your heart of hearts. Do you know how hard it is to have that regional top under my belt? And it's with Snake Eye in a format where Hero is topping regional events. I've lost my way, man. I've lost my way. I want to say no about Sky Striker, but if you get Ryan Yu piloting it, I think it could happen. He'll cook up something. These types of discussions can be very contentious. It looks like a bunch of people can't decide if an FTK featuring Exodia or Magical Scientist, or a deck like Zodiac loaded up on hand traps, is the other competitor for greatest of all time when compared to a Shizu tier. But we can all agree on one thing. Nekroz is the most fraudulent tier 0 deck in the history of time. See you next week. Wow, what the fuck? Two people, one right after the other?